Okay, we're joined by Duke student athletes Grayson Allen and Marvin Begley. A couple of reminders. When you ask a question, please give your name and affiliation. You're allowed to audio tape these proceedings. Do not videotape them. Questions for the student athletes?
Grayson, I have kind of a random question for you. Dane O'Neill with The Athletic. We were told that the guy who was a songwriter for One Shiny Moment has like a picture of you watching yourself on the replay from when you guys won the title as like sort of an inspiration. What is it like to watch yourself on One Shiny Moment? It's a very random question, I know.
Yeah, it's weird because as like basketball players and basketball fans, we obviously watch that moment, and you see that one team standing up there at the end of the year. And for me to be able to have that moment myself and go back and watch that, I haven't gone back and watched it in a while, probably since right after it happened. But to have that just like years from now to watch, and it's very special. It's very memorable, and part of what makes it is because you look at that moment so many times growing up, and you just try to picture yourself there.
For both players, Tim Benz from the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review. For both players, I know Coach Krzyzewski's resume speaks for itself, but I'm wondering how you both have been impacted by his assistants, the guys on the staff, some of the younger guys that have been in the program pretty recently, John, Nolan, Nate. If you guys could maybe share a story or two about how those guys have helped you along during your time at Duke, how they've impacted your careers here. One of each, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Coach is arguably the greatest coach to ever coach. So being able to be under his wing all year, every practice, seeing him every day, you know, it's a great experience to be able to learn from him and pick his brain on certain things that he knows about. You know, he coached the U.S. team, won some championships. So being able to be a part of something so special with him leading the way is something really I'll remember for the rest of my life. And it's been a great experience for me. And I'm just having fun every day, and I'm just trying to learn as much as I can.
The thing with his assistants, you share a lot of experience with them because they were all in our shoes. So, you know, nobody's career is going to be perfect, so anything you really go through, they've been through something similar or maybe the exact same thing. So there's moments where, for example, me last year, being this mixture of point guard and wing, I talked to Nolan a lot and Coach Shire because both of those guys were kind of in that combo position, played some point, were more scorers, and so talking to them a lot about how they handled it, their mindset between, you know, distributing and running the team and also trying to score the ball. And then you talk to a lot of these guys about leadership. You know, Coach James and Coach Gabe, all of our assistant coaches were great leaders on their teams. And so you just try to pick their brains on certain things that you can do for this team, but also you can do as a leader underneath Coach because they obviously played for Coach too, and so you just share so many similarities, you can learn a ton.
Andrea Wilson, ESPN.com. Grayson, in what ways has this season been a different challenge for you than the past few years?
You know, leadership is very different and new, and it comes with its own challenges. You know, especially with a very young team who everything is a first. And, you know, it's your first game in Cameron, your first ACC game, first true road game, first tournament, everything's a first. And so you have to try to prepare them. And for me being the lone senior and lone captain, it puts a lot on my plate to try to prepare these guys. So you really have to expand your focus to not only on yourself, but, you know, making sure all these guys are okay. And it makes it easy when they're as good as they are. It makes it a little bit easier. But still, you know, experience is something that's tough to beat. And so we've tried to gain that throughout the year. And I know the young guys will say it's been challenging at times for them because they've had to learn so much, but they've done a great job of it. And I've just tried to be the best example I could for them.
Mark Berman, the Roanoke Times. I was wondering, Grayson, what's your kind of mindset going into your last NCAA tournament? I assume trying to soak everything up there. And also, Marvin, obviously, Trae Young was in here earlier talking about, last year he's getting ready at this time to play in the McDonald's All-America game, and now he gets to be part of March Madness. So I was kind of wondering what your mindset is toward going into your first NCAA tournament.
It's something new. I obviously haven't been a part of. You grow up, you watch it in school. Everybody has their phones and iPads, whatever they have, computers, whatever they have, watching this tournament. So it's obviously a big thing for the sport of basketball. So being able to finally be here and actually be a part of it is a great thing, great feeling. And I'm just trying to soak it all in. This is from here on out. You only get one guaranteed game, and we got to take it one day at a time. So just trying to soak everything in and just try to have fun, but still be able to lock in when it's time to be prepared and get ready.
For me, I'm just trying to be in the moment in everything I do. Knowing I've been here before, but I'm probably going to remember the last a lot. And so just trying to be in the moment. I know everything still feels new for me because each time I've done it, it's been with a completely different group. And so just trying to enjoy it and make a special moment with this team and this group, and try to look back where at the end I don't have any regrets. I don't want to look back and say I should have changed something in my preparation. I should have changed something in how I practiced and worked leading up to the game. I don't want to look back and be able to say any of those things. So it's just fully committing 110% to basketball right now and everything I do leading up to this.
Mark Herman from Newsday in New York. Marvin, some of us remember seeing your grandfather play. I just wanted to find out, what do you know about Joe Caldwell and his legacy? And also for both players, what do you know about Iona?
I know a lot of my grandpa obviously tells me stuff, and I've seen some highlights of him in the All-Star game playing against many of the greats that played the game. So there's a lot of stories out there about him, how good he was, how he can jump out the gym, how he got his nickname. It's a lot of great stories out there about him. So he just tries to show me things every now and then, what he did back then, and it's pretty cool to see it because I'm not used to seeing him run the floor and score points like he was doing back then. So it's pretty cool to see stuff like that. I'm just trying to soak that in as well, just learn from him and anything I can.
Yeah, well, we know Iona, they have a great basketball tradition at their school. They're not a stranger to the tournament. They've been here before, many times before, actually. Myself, I actually have had a class with Coach Welsh at Duke, who is an old Iona coach. So that's one pretty neat thing. And so we understand the basketball tradition they have there. They're not just a team who's lucky to be here. They do this. This is what they do. And so, that's a really cool thing about them. And they're a very good basketball team, fast-paced, and they can really score the ball. They have a lot of guys that can beat you. It's not a team that has a top scorer, a top guy that you have to watch. They have 6 or 7 guys who can go off and be their leading scorer any game. So it makes them a dangerous team to defend too.
Grayson, the 2015 tournament, I'm over here, Amari St. Clair for Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. The 2015 tournament was really big for you as far as just you sort of breaking out, establishing the kind of player you are. 3 years later, as a senior, has your mindset at all changed or adjusted, compared to then when you were a freshman?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot different. My freshman year, I had no idea what to expect or what to do. I just kind of wanted to play hard and just go out there and, just leave it all out there. And from that aspect, it hasn't changed. But, with this team, I'm in a completely different role. I've kind of flipped the script from being, the freshman on the end of the bench who wasn't getting much playing time, really didn't have any pressure on him, to now being the leader of a team and kind of growing into that role. So it's completely different from that mindset, but at the same time, I still want to have a great moment with this group.
Jeff Goodman with ESPN. Grayson, I asked you this before, so you don't need to answer this one, but about the zone, Marvin, what was your reaction when coach kind of told you, or maybe he didn't tell you, maybe you just started playing the zone exclusively a few weeks ago? And how long has it taken you to adjust, to get comfortable playing the zone?
It's, you know, it's a long season, so a lot of things can happen where we adjust to certain things, and, you know, coach just moved into the zone, and we've been playing it. You know, I think we've been playing it pretty well for the most part, but, you know, there's obviously things we could get better at in it. But, you know, it's just something that coach put in for us to, you know, just to try to make adjustments on the defensive end, and I think it's been working out great for us.
Eric Brady from USA Today. This morning we had thousands of high school kids walk out of class on a protest of gun violence. As college students, have you thought about the issue of gun control? And if so, can you tell us what you think?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things is that there's obviously a problem when you see so much violence in our country. As far as, you know, picking something to change, I'm honest and open enough to say I don't know. But there has to be a change in something that we do as people, something we do as a country, because there is so much violence. So much of it is affecting families. So much of it is just unwarranted and senseless that it really, it's troubling. It's really troubling, and anybody who knows it or follows it, you know, you have to kind of be moved by it, because you see how much of a problem it is and how really heartbreaking it is to see just loss of lives over nothing, over senseless violence. So I think, you know, the protests are great, you know, as long as we're pushing for some type of positive change. But again, I can't sit up here and say I want a certain thing to be changed. I don't know exactly what it is.
Any other questions for these guys?
One more for Grayson. In what ways do you feel like you're better prepared now for your future for the draft than you would have been if you had decided to leave after last season?
Well, I think I'm a better basketball player. You know, I think that it's a very interesting thing when you talk about, you know, people staying in college hurting their draft stock, because I think I've become a much better basketball player over the last 3 years. And each time I've kind of chose to say, you know, I'm staying in school, I'm not going anywhere. You know, the interesting thing is I'm choosing to stay here because I want to learn under coach, and I think he's the greatest basketball coach that I could learn under. And so I think I'm a much better basketball player, much more rounded basketball player. And then leadership has affected my game in a ton of positive ways. And, you know, I wouldn't have had that opportunity if I wasn't here for my senior year.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Just a reminder, the locker room is open right now for these guys. All right, just a few things here before Coach Krzyzewski gets started. If you have a question, please give your name and your affiliation. This can be audio taped, not videotaped. We'll start with an opening statement from Coach.
Yeah, well, obviously we're excited to be here. Pittsburgh's what a great town to be in. Reminds me of my hometown, Chicago, and I used to come to this part of the country when I was a little kid quite a bit, because my mom was born right near Uniontown, in a little coal mining town called Keisterville, and so brings back some really good memories. Our team is healthy. I know you don't want to hear about me and my childhood, but shame on you for not wanting to hear that. Our team's healthy. We're excited. Obviously, we're going to play a very explosive offensive team coached by a guy who has not just coached a team, but has built a program. And, you know, Iona has a great basketball tradition that I'm well aware of since my days of coaching at Army. Any questions, please?
Luke DeCock, Raleigh News and Observer. You just mentioned Iona's tradition. Obviously, we think of Jim Valvano as the V Foundation and NC State, but you guys had 5 years of battles there. What role does Iona play in the Valvano legacy in your mind, and what is your strongest memory of those days?
Yeah, well, it's a huge part of his legacy because, you know, he got Jeff Rulin and Vickers and these guys to go there, and you know, I think one of the biggest, it could be the biggest win that they've had was against Louisville in the Garden, which propelled them, and they were the talk of the town once he got it done. And we didn't battle for 5 years, but we battled a few years, and I bring my team with a guy named Gary Winton at 6'4", a really strong guy, battling Ruland, and you know, he had the upper hand, but that's where that's where he started. I mean, but he wasn't the first guy there. You know, there was a tradition for basketball before, but then he took it to another level.
Joe Starkey, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Mike, I apologize for going a little off topic here, but Pistol Pete Maravich was born right down the river and spent some of his early years here, and I'm wondering, just at the name Pistol Pete, if that evokes any images or interactions you may have had.
I mean, that's during my time, and every kid wanted to be him. And imagine if there was a three-point shot. There'd be no records that would ever, his records would be even further. Just magical with the ball, and to me, people talk about a guy going into a zone and being able to, he was in a zone all the time. You know, he was probably the most entertaining player to watch on a collegiate level that I've ever seen. It's just magical, and if TV and everything was what it is today, then, you know, it would be, he would have the top ratings. And you know, it was actually the year after I graduated, Army beat him. Jimmy Oxley, my buddy's senior year, but again, you smile. Kids today should see his videos and just how good he was handling the ball. Not necessarily all of his shot selection. All right.
Mike, Tim Benz from Triple Life. I had a question for you about coaching staff assembly, how you assemble your staff largely from within. The first question would be, I know you've been with Coach Capel for a while, but your three younger assistants, what stood out about them quality-wise that made you want to put them on your bench with you? And then the second part of that would be, beyond knowing the program, knowing the conference, how important is it to have guys on your staff that know the conference as well?
Well, it's knowing your environment. And once I knew, this was a long time ago, that I'm going to be at Duke, you know, that I don't want to go anywhere else. You know, entertain maybe a pro thing a couple times, but no collegiate job ever interested me. I felt that our environment was different, whether it's best or whatever. Duke, I didn't go to Duke, so someone who could feel Duke, feel what it is to be a freshman there coming in, and then knowing me. There's something about institutional memory in any business, and you know, my memory's not the best. And so sometimes they'll say, you know, remember when we did this? And each of my guys, I only wanted you know, Mike Bray was the last guy who was not one of my former players, and that was a while ago. I wanted guys who I thought were students of the game and were captains. They were leaders. And then that's helped maintain a relationship with our former players, too, because they not only, you know, refer to me because I was their coach. Their teammates or a guy that helped recruit them is on the staff, and it's created a really great environment for us. I think, did I answer? Well, yeah, they're great teachers. You know, they feel, you know, all those guys feel the game. They have a great feel for the game. All my guys well, Jeff has been a head coach. You know, all my guys will be really good head coaches, as the guys who have been with me before. You know, Wojo, Chris, Tommy, Johnny, these guys.
Dana O'Neill with The Athletic. To your point about what you just said about making the decision to stay at Duke, Danny Hurley was in here earlier, asked about hearing his name. How did you decide, and then how do you advise maybe even your assistants or other coaches about whether the grass is greener, whether you should stay or go?
Yeah, I think, one, can you understand where you're at and the people that you have to compete against? They bring out the best in you. Our conference does that, our non-conference schedule. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot. And then do you go then to a lower Division I or mid-Division I, or do you try to skip that step and wait for an opportunity to get something in a power conference or what? But I always tell them, follow your heart. Just use your head while you're following it, and then I'll support them, whatever they want to do.
Coach K, Omari St. Clover from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Earlier you said your grandmother was in Uniontown.
My mom.
Your mom.
Yeah.
Did you
Keisterville.
Keisterville.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of family?
Yeah,
Western
there's still
PA?
some there. I haven't seen them for a long time. But when I was a kid, we used to take a car trip from Chicago to Keisterville, and that was a big thing. I don't know how big it would be for my grandkids now, but I would hope it would still be nice.
And do you think you have a chance to maybe go down there while you're?
No, I won't be able to do that. Yeah. There's no time. We have press conferences and have things like that. I can hear you.
Some zone, some man earlier in the year, and then a few weeks ago you went pretty much exclusively to zone.
Right.
Do you remember what it was exactly that made you say, hey, we got to go exclusively to zone at this point?
Yeah, well, I think getting to know our team, that's a big thing throughout the year. You're trying to squeeze a lot in a 7-month period or so. And the movements, the foot movements and how we got wider playing man really helped us in playing zone. And then our top 7 guys, 4 of them are big guys. And when we subbed, we got all our big guys away from the basket. And so we said, now that we have the good lateral movement, let's teach this as our primary D. We still do man. We haven't shown it, but we're prepared to play man. But our movements are better. And for whatever reason, probably somebody who's done this, both man and zone before me, would understand this, but we don't talk as well as a team in man. I communicate. I think we think too much of our individual assignment, whereas in zone, we really talk well, or we talk better. We didn't really talk well in the ACC tournament, and our movement wasn't as good. But overall, our communication is just really at a much different level. And, if you're communicating, you have a better chance to be won. And so that's how we got here. And we're a good defensive team. And we're trying to get better and trying to look at other things that we can do in the zone that can produce tempo for us. And no, I don't know. It probably should have been an epiphany, right? And probably when Marvin was out, yeah. And then we put Grayson back on top, and now we've put Trayvon back there. But we stuck with the zone.
John McKelvey with the Norman Transcript. Mike, what do you think about the two talented freshmen here, and how they've handled their celebrity? Because with
there are more than 2 talented freshmen here, because I coach more than 2.
That's true.
And
but the two big celebrities, Marvin Bagley and
I haven't really looked at another team.
Yeah.
Except Iona. So, look, I know Trey. We looked at him. We were impressed with him. But to me, I'd rather just talk about Iona.
Okay.
And if we're fortunate enough to, and my guys, if we're fortunate enough to play Oklahoma, then I'll talk forever about it.
Let me just ask you then, what do you think about how Marvin's handled all the celebrity, all the fans, all that stuff, and is that something where freshmen have gotten better at that?
Yeah, well, they're thrown into it sooner, and they handle it better if everybody on their team handles it well. And so our guys have handled it well because, Wendell Carter is a very good player, Gary Trent, for the start of the ACC, especially January, is shooting over. He's the leading three-point shooter in the ACC. So those guys know that they're good players. They also know that Marvin is a special talent, and then Marvin's a good guy, So he's a team guy. So that's helped tremendously. But the other guys have really good egos, and Grayson being one of the key guys, because an upperclassman, unless they're pretty solid guys, they could say, hey, what about me? And Grayson's never done that.
Mark Herman from Newsday in New York.
Right here, I'm sorry.
Just to follow up on your familiarity with Iona and that part of the world, what is it about that place that makes it such fertile ground for basketball?
Well, it's a really good school. It's just in New Rochelle. It's a beautiful campus, and they attract really good students. They attract good people, and then they've had this rich basketball tradition from McDermott. I mean, one of the guys who is a teacher at Duke, Jerry Welsh, was a coach there. Pat Kennedy, you're Gary Brokaw. I mean, you're talking about a history of outstanding coaches, and Tim's the latest one, and to carry that on, they have great, really, for a program. Just a basketball school, a smaller school, they have such a rich basketball tradition.
Kevin Gorman.
Yeah.
Kevin Gorman from the Tribune Review. When you see a program in the ACC like Pitt have Jamie Dixon leave and 2 years later fires Kevin Stallings, how much does that raise our eyebrows around the coaching fraternity, and how much, when you see that type of turnover at a program, especially at a fellow ACC program, how much, if you were advising another coach or even one of your assistants to look at that job, would that be something you'd
I'd rather not
concerned?
talk specifically about advising my assistant, but look, nothing surprises you in our world, or should, because things can turn over so quickly. Recruiting and the rapidity of high-level recruiting puts you in a position to fall short easier, because you don't have your guys as long. And with the amazing number of transfers that take place, especially, the biggest one and done is the grad transfer. People talk about one and done. Well, if you compared numbers, it's not even close with kids from high school that go one and done and the grad transfers. And as a result, programs can change quickly. And so it doesn't surprise me. And, the programs that have been able to keep it going year after year, probably have great support they probably have continuity in ADs and presidents. I think that's another thing to look at in changing, because even the lower Division I programs or mid-Division I programs, you have sometimes ADs who are looking to climb. And where they might, the older days, you might stick with somebody, well, you haven't been to the NCAA tournament in 8 years, but you have a great, well, I'm not sure I want to be here for 8 years as an AD. So if one of their team, if that team goes to the NCAA, boom, they're part of that rocket, that takes them to another place. So there's more chance for change right now than even 10 years ago, by far. So it doesn't surprise me.
Hey, Coach Adam Zagoria, you mentioned the grad transfers on Iona. Coach Klus was out here before saying he's built his team a lot through transfers,
sure,
grad transfers, and he can't recruit, McDonald's All-Americans. I guess, can you just speak to how coaches kind of adapt their recruiting philosophy to the school they're at? I mean, you're going about it one way, Tim's doing it another way. I mean, if you were the coach at Iona, would you kind of do what he's doing? Or?
Well, I would. If you go every year to the NCAA tournament, I mean, he's doing something really good. How you all adapt. I mean, how people adapt is part of how you maintain success. I mean, I have to adapt. You know, I've been coaching for 43 years. I better adapt to how I deal with the kids I coach. And so, you know, good leaders stick with good fundamental values while they adapt to the current environment of how to, you know, how to be successful. And he's done that. And really, the grad transfer thing is a huge thing. That's I think that's been something that really hasn't been written about, the impact of the grad transfer, because and they've done a really good job of it, and just transfers in general. And then we'll see where that goes, depending on how legislation goes with that. But then that would be interesting if that changes. Then you're really going to see rapidity of change, big time, big time.
Mike, Josh Roundtree, 93.7 The Fan. In 1997, Coppin State as a 15 seed won here, and that was pretty rare. People still talk about that here. It was so rare that now it's happened, 4 times in the last 6 years.
Yeah, we've been one of them. So.
Right. How have you seen that gap
close? Are you trying to like ease yourself in there, or what?
No. How have you seen the gap close though, from 25 years ago to where we are now?
Well, based on exactly what we're talking about, if you can have 22, 23, and 24-year-olds playing against 19-year-olds, that can happen. I mean, that's what happened. And good coaching. When we lost to Mercer, their team that won together over 90 games together, they have one of the better coaches in the country, and they're 22, 23 years old. They know how to play, and they're tough. They're men. And that's what's – there's more chance of that happening. It's now in Coppin State, that was less of a chance during that time. But right now, there's a chance that can happen at any time.
Hey, Jonathan Alexander with the News and Observer. You all are a top 10 defense right
Thanks.
now. According to many rankings.
I'm sorry we didn't hit your heart, but
what do you think changed for you all from whatever the middle of the season or the beginning or whatever it is that helped prepare you all to where you are now?
Yeah, I just think we've gotten to know each other better, and we've stayed healthy. We haven't lost. Marvin was out for 4 games, and we've kept growing. We've gotten better. We throughout the whole year we've gotten better. To right now we're the best that we have been all year. Even though we didn't play a really good 34 minutes against North Carolina, we're a good team right now, and I love that. That means that our kids have bought in throughout, and they've made each other better throughout.
Coach, Doug Galassi with the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review. You mentioned the impact of graduate transfers, but I wanted to ask about those 19-year-olds that you mentioned. Is there a common thread you look at when you see a guy like Marvin or even other guys in this city this weekend, like a Trae Young or Colin Sexton, to help them acclimate to college ball so quickly? What kind of stands out when you look at guys like that?
Well, their talent and their drive and their work ethic. And they know that they have it, and then when they come into your program, are they going to give it to you to develop? And in our case, the guys who've come in have done that. So you wish you could coach them longer, and you're not ever going to coach them to the level that they will be at. But can you get them to a very high level, where they can be successful in this environment. And but like in Marvin's case, I can't speak to the other youngsters. Marvin, Wendell, these guys, they've been great kids for us, and they're not going to be really good all the time because of transitions that they have to make. But and they're called upon to do it every day. But overall, they've been really good to work with. And so you look for attitude along with that. Is will they give themselves up to be taught? Will they listen, or are they stuck in their ways? And I can speak for Marvin. He's a good student of the game, and he's been a real pleasure to coach.
Andrea Adelson, ESPN.com. As a quick follow-up to the transfer conversation, now there's talk about potentially transferring with immediate eligibility if you hit a certain grade point average. What are your thoughts on that? Because there's the unintended consequence of maybe coaches trying to not get their players to get to that grade point average. So that
well,
they won't transfer.
in any, you bring up a great point. In any rule, or there's going to be people trying to get around it, and so the people who are making the rules should understand that there are already people trying to break the rule that they're trying to make, and therefore is the rule a good rule? Because you're going to have to deal with how people try to take advantage of it. So the transfer thing is a complex issue. It's a complex issue, and I don't envy the people making the decisions, but ask them that question before they put it out, because that's what you have to consider. Like, how will people try to stay within the rules but maneuver? Will you put your kids in harder courses, or I don't know. Would you? If there's a way of getting around it, somebody will figure it out. That's why when people are amazed that something happens that's wrong, how could that happen? It happens all the time. People are always trying to get around things. I think that's one of the really tough issues facing our the NCAA. But the biggest issue is your definition of amateurism, and what can be done for the kids before you get them, to make sure that what you don't know or cannot know doesn't hurt you when they are with you. Can we help those kids a little bit, not a little bit better, but a lot better in doing that?
Any other questions for Coach?
Yeah, my team isn't. Don't I practice at 1:15? Yeah, I got to get the heck out of here, right? Yeah, as important as you are, I'd like to take care of my 40 minutes. We're on at 1:15, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm late. All right, thank you. All right, appreciate it.